Hello and welcome, Katie here. Thanks so much for stopping by. I am back with another project for Maker Forte, and today we're going to stretch our background stamps. So I've got a Father's Day stamp set that came out in June-ish, and we're going to use that to create our winter scene. Now, I've got some white pigment ink, I've got some pearlescent pigment inks, and this is our Dear Dad stamp set. I've got the Holly Berry stamp set that I'll pull our sentiment from. I've got some Arches dies from Spellbinders, and then I've got some clear embossing powder. So this little set of colors here is the Brilliance Jewel set. All four of these colors, it's pearlescent orchid, pearlescent purple, pearlescent lavender, and pearlescent sky blue, all come in a little kit, or of course you can buy them individually. Now, linked up down below, I did it as just the set because it was actually cheaper. So use that as a guide, do a search if you want these colors, if you don't have them. And of course you can use whatever you have. You don't have to use these specific colors. So I want to talk about a couple things. So I'm going to talk ahead from what we're doing because I'm just doing some ink blending, but I want you to see I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just applying the colors and trying to get it, you know, in kind of a sky looking shape based on the stamped image and where I know the placement of that stamped image is going to be. So really this kind of stuff is your preference, the creator, the maker's preference. So just keep that in mind. So one of the things I want to talk about is the Snow Flurries pigment ink. There's a few people I've seen in the Facebook groups that have asked about that pigment ink because it doesn't seem to dry even when they let it sit overnight. So there's two things you can do. One, what I'm going to do here and what I've done in past videos using that ink is just apply a clear embossing powder over it, and it's going to protect it. It's going to give it a little bit of extra shine, and you're not going to have to worry about it. The second thing is just change pigment inks. Change your white pigment ink. My other absolute ride or die favorite is Brilliance Moonlight White pigment ink from Sook and Echo, and it's the best white pigment ink. Aside from the Snow Flurries, I really like how bright and bold and white the Snow Flurries pigment ink is. But if smudging bothers you and you don't want to take the extra step to, you know, add that clear embossing powder, then I definitely recommend the Brilliance Moonlight White because it will dry. The Hanukkah cards that I made a week or two ago, depending on when you see this video, I had navy cardstock background card bases, and I used that Brilliance Moonlight White on the back of those for my background stamp for my name and website, and let it dry overnight, 24 hours. Well, overnight, it wasn't even a full 24 hours, and by the morning it was dry, smudge free. So if smudging really bothers you with your white pigment ink, I definitely recommend the Brilliance Moonlight White. If you don't mind throwing a little bit of clear embossing powder on there, use the Snow Flurries because that's a really great white pigment ink. Okay, so we're almost done. I'm fixing up my edges here because I kind of went a little overboard with and made the edge too thick with the purple, so I'm added more blue, and now I'm going to fix that so we have a little bit more even with the blue and purple edges there. So the other thing I want to mention is that I go straight through. We're using pigment ink here to blend. Pretty shimmer, I love it, but it's going to be wet. It takes time for pigment ink to dry, as we just discussed. So I'm using kaolin clay powder. This is really going to put it to the test, and I'm adding a ton of it. I kept all this in. I wanted you to see how much powder I'm putting on, which it's kind of hard to see, but you can really see me moving it around and applying it because it's wet. Your embossing powder will stick to anything that has any type of moisture. So your anti-static powder tool is important, and kaolin clay powder is the absolute best, and you only need just a fluffy powder brush to apply it. You can put it in a little jar. You don't need a fancy applicator for it. But here I want to show you. I inked up my stamp and really impressed to get a nice good first impression with my white pigment ink. Now I'm being quick about it. I ink it up and then press, 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 and I lift. Okay, I did that 3 or 4 times till I was comfortable with it. You can't hold it down. So here you can see I'm adding my clear embossing powder, pretty chunky coming out of there. It's a large jar, so and you can see that there was no extra embossing powder left in the blue purpley space, sky space. So you see it really works. I can't recommend that kaolin clay powder enough for heat embossing so that you don't get those stray embossing powders. So I die cut, we're moving along, I die cut, and now I'm creating a little frame, because the one thing I don't like about die cutting embossing, heat embossing, is sometimes it kind of tears the edge up a little bit. So I created a frame using those Arches dies, and just the one that we cut our main image out from, and then the one down, the size down from it, so that we got a nice little 1/8 of an inch frame, I would say. I don't think it's a 1/4 of an inch. I'd say it's about an 1/8 of an inch. Nice thin frame, just to fill in that edge and give it a nice clean look. The foam, if you will, I'm using is just some extra cardstock, 4 layers. And then this is a number 8 Jelly Roll white pen that I'm using to add some little snowflakes. And I'm just showing you that I just tap, tap, tap to get that white pigment ink on there from the pen. And then a little double-sided adhesive and adhering that on. The season's greeting is stamped with VersaFine Claire's Nocturne and on an A2 heavyweight card base, and that finishes the card. I love how this turned out. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Be sure and check the description box below, and follow us over at the Crafter Party, Maker Forte's Facebook group, and share what you guys are making. We'd love to see what you guys are doing. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next video.